Shovelhead Austin, true American New York City legend. This one's for you, Austin. Shovelhead Austin forever. Rest in peace. So this is a video that I've contemplated making or not making, which is a tribute video to New York City's legendary Shovelhead Austin, who passed away quite recently. And I'm actually on my way right now to his funeral service to pay my respects, celebrate his life, and to just do some reflecting about what he meant to me, how he's influenced me. Austin was a huge support of mine in terms of what I do here on the channel. And Austin was a huge influence on me as a rider, you know? So before I get too far into this, what I do want to say is, you know, the purpose of this video is obviously to pay respect to Austin and to celebrate all his accomplishments as a rider and his legacy, but also whether you knew Austin personally or like me, he's had a positive impact on you in some way. Or if you're just watching this and you want to support or pay your respects in some way, the talented photographer Debbie Fitch, who has taken a lot of really great photographs of Austin over the years, is setting up like a GoFundMe type situation where you could just PayPal Debbie directly, and if you throw in $75 or more to support the loved ones that Austin left behind, including a loving wife and kids, Debbie will send you an actual print of a photograph that she took of Austin riding. And, you know, obviously we already pledged, we already threw into it. Within a couple days, you know, we received that print of Austin in all of his glory, riding across the bridge or riding in Brooklyn, somewhere in Brooklyn. But yeah, before we get rolling into this, I'll put up the information in the description of how you could support if you want to pay your respects or you want to support the family. Anyone who's lost someone knows that hospital bills and funeral service bills are a real thing, so anything helps. Please consider throwing into this. But I'm going to get some gas. It really is a beautiful morning out here, and I'm going to pick it up as we get a little bit further, so stay tuned. Yeah, so for anyone who's maybe not from New York or just doesn't know who Shovelhead Austin was or the legacy of Shovelhead Austin, to keep it pretty brief, he was a rider out here pioneering a New York riding style and build and different chopper builds out here in the late 60s, 70s, 80s. A lot of people throw the word OG around, you know, but you'd be pressed to find anyone who would be more a legitimate OG than Shovelhead Austin, who was, you know, ripping around on choppers all the way into his 70s. So he was a true OG. You know, he was really about that true bike life, that true motorcycle lifestyle, especially in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, where, you know, I think we all know motorcycle culture is a very different thing in modern day than what it was in those years. Austin was a living relic, right? Austin and his bikes were a living, breathing museum and wealth of information and history. And that's why, you know, his Instagram was definitely one of my favorites for a couple of reasons. Number one, he would just always post all these old pictures, really old pictures. I'm talking going back to the 70s, insane pictures that you would see that would just tell a story of Harley Davidson culture and Harley Davidson bike life that you're not going to get from the Harley Davidson Museum, right? And I mean, you could go check out his Instagram. You know, it's a living monument and memory to what he was. And basically, you would just get a lot of pictures that would take you back in time to days and bikes from way before I was even born. And I would always really appreciate it, and he would always take the time, like if I found a picture that was really interesting, like he posted one this time of him and his son on a brand new, it was like a brand new FXRP, and he was just telling me the story about that. He would always take the time to tell you the story about it. You know, he wouldn't just write back in like a one-word answer or like emojis. He would really do the pictures justice and tell you exactly what was going on. And I learned a lot about the history of Harley Davidson culture, especially here in New York City, just through following his content. And besides that, you know, Austin, if you're just looking at his Instagram and you're just looking at what was left behind digitally, if it wasn't something that was related to the good old days, the history of bike culture, especially out here on the East Coast, then he would just always have something really positive to post. And whether that was lifting somebody up who was going through a hard time, or if it was just some positive quote or something. I talk a lot about the PMA lifestyle. Austin 100% lived that PMA lifestyle, 100%. And as I hit the Williamsburg Bridge, covered in the golden rising sun, I think of a video that one of my mentors in this bike life posted recently, which was Peter Guns. He posted a recent video of him and Shovelhead Austin ripping across this bridge. And obviously I'm contending with construction and traffic right now, but you could see in the video, dude, they are getting after it. And this is a man in his 70s on a Shovelhead chopper, probably hitting triple digits on this bridge that I'm on right now. And I just saw that video and it just made me smile so much. And as I'm looking at this really beautiful sight right now of New York City in the early morning, you know, I'm not really that spiritual, right? But I just can't help but picture Shovelhead Austin over that skyline, looking down over this sunrise and smiling. I'm not really that spiritual, but I just find it kind of crazy that on the day that we are celebrating Austin's life, that we are doing the funeral service, is a day that is very unseasonably warm here in February. You know, it's gonna get close to 60 today. And again, I just love the fact that on the day that we commemorate Austin's life and legacy, that you're gonna have so many people bringing their bikes out of hiding, and you're just gonna have here in New York City and all over the East Coast exhaust roaring all day. And the fact that that's happening on the day that we remember Shovelhead Austin, again, it's just too good to be true. You know, it just makes you wonder sometimes, is there something else going on out there in the universe? Because that's just too coincidental. So yeah, the day that we remember, the day that we celebrate Shovelhead is a beautiful, beautiful day out here in New York City. Again, it is going to get up to 60 degrees, and you know me, I've been riding in the 20s all winter, so I feel it, man. I feel the contrast, and I just can't help but think. I just can't help but picture Austin smiling down right now on what I'm doing and what everybody else is going to be doing today that hops on a motorcycle, whether they attend his funeral service or not. But if there was ever a day to remember Austin, this would be it. So in terms of how Austin influenced me, he's had a major influence on me, right? I mean, first and foremost, you know, if you look at my bike builds, it's pretty obvious, like, you know that those builds have been heavily influenced by Peter Guns, right? And now Peter Guns has been heavily influenced by Austin. So in terms of performance built influence, it's definitely there. You know, he definitely has had a major impact on my builds, as well as just what a New York style bike could be. You know, he's definitely moved the culture forward in that regard, especially in the chopper scene. He's definitely been someone who's solidified what a New York chopper is. One example is the flame. One of my favorite quotes from Peter is, "It's a New York bike, it's gotta have flames," right? That's 100% Shovelhead Austin right there. It's gotta have flames if it's from New York. And I mean, one of the biggest influences he's had on me, not just thinking about the PMA lifestyle, you know, facing challenges with a positive mental attitude, which Austin definitely did, but back in 2016, when I didn't have any of the hard miles under my belt, I had not yet done any of the big bike trips, I remember I was just on my 2016 Dyna Lowrider S, right? It just had like a gauntlet fairing and some T-bars and exhaust. It was super minimal. And I used to tell people, you know, that I had these aspirations and I had these dreams of taking that bike cross country. And I just remember all the haters, man. I remember all the haters when I would talk about this stuff. All the people who would say, "You're never going to do it on that bike. That bike is not built to perform like that. That bike is not built to do heavy miles like that." And then my counter argument when people would say that to me was, well, what about Shovelhead Austin? Because Shovelhead Austin did it in the 70s on a panhead. I repeat, the man did it in the 70s, coast to coast, California to New York, by himself on a panhead. And that was one of the biggest inspirations for me, you know, back when I started solidifying my riding style, you know, of going really far, maintaining high performance, and doing it on a bike that was not intended to do it. Austin was 100% one of my biggest inspirations for that type of riding style. So he's had a major impact as how I look at riding as a rider, how I think about riding, and he paved the way. He really paved the way for not just me, but a lot of us out here in New York City. And yeah, like I said, you know, it's like one of the things out here in New York is we get a bad reputation for people being like standoffish. You know, you got the classic New York attitude. You know, people from out of state don't think that New Yorkers are generally that approachable. In the motorcycle community, I've always kind of found the opposite thing, you know? Like, for example, back when I was many years ago, just some kid ripping around on an old Sportster, I remember, you know, seeing Peter Guns at all the Indian Larry bike nights and all the Indian Larry events, and just seeing Peter and being like, yo, this dude is so intimidating. I was nervous to go and talk to him, you know, because I wanted to talk to him. He had a bike that I really was legitimately my favorite bike I had ever seen, which was the green Brooklyn bike. And I remember I just wanted to talk to him and ask him so many questions. But I remember being nervous, just thinking like, who am I? I'm some kid on a Sportster. This is some legitimate OG who looks intimidating as hell. I'll never forget, I finally was like, I gotta talk to him. I gotta ask him about this bike. This is a long time ago. And I just remember him just approaching me with such a warm smile and so much kindness. Austin was the same way the first time I met Austin. You know, here you have a true OG legend. The man has achieved legendary things, you know. I mean, the cross-country panhead trip, that's just one thing, you know. He's achieved amazing bike builds. He's achieved amazing things just within the motorcycle culture. And who am I? You know, I'm just some idiot with a GoPro on an FXR. You know, why does this guy want to talk to me? And I'll just never forget, you know, just the same way as it was with Peter. He was just so humble, where if you met him, you know, you wouldn't know that he was this absolute legend, you know, this absolute folklore legend out here, because he was so humble and he was just so kind. And again, out here in New York City, I know we don't have that reputation, but out here in the bike life, it's a different story, man. The true OGs, I find, they're some of the kindest and most welcoming people. Now, obviously, I wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of them. But yeah. don't think Austin would approve of ripping through the tunnel right now at high speeds. That's right, if I'm gonna roll up to the memorial for Shovelhead Austin, I'm gonna do it properly. Which is high speeds on an FXR. Or maybe the proper way would be to do it on a chopper. This one's for you, Austin. Shovelhead Austin forever. Rest in peace. In terms of, you know, why this day is a day of celebration, you know, and we celebrate the life, you know, it's also definitely a day of mourning. It's definitely a day of heartbreak for me because, you know, honestly, Austin, I'm talking to you about this right now, but when I started the Lowdown series and I made it a purpose that I wanted to tell stories like Austin and, you know, really make sure that these stories were known and being told, he was number one to be on the Lowdown series. He was number one. But unfortunately, the pandemic had hit. You know, he was trying to be a little bit more careful about it, so it did not allow me the opportunity to ever do his Lowdown video, you know, and especially after I did Peter's, I was like, man, we gotta do Austin's next, you know, it's all I had been thinking about after that. And, you know, it really sucks, man. You know, it really, in terms of the stories that I really wanted to make sure were told, his was at the top of the list. And now, he's not going to be around to tell it in the way that I thought it needed to be told, which was out of his mouth on his bike. But what that means is I'm just going to have to find a creative way to still make that happen. And that kind of brings me to, you know, my next point of why I'm making this video. And that's to celebrate the life and legacy beyond today, you know, just beyond paying our respects at Austin's funeral service. There's going to be a block party that Indian Larry's going to be hosting in early May. I believe it's going to be May 7th, May 8th. The last time I talked to Bobby, that's when it looked like. If you ever needed a reason to come to New York and you are into bike life, this is the thing for you to come to. This event is going to be amazing, man, and I'm really hoping it's going to be an annual thing that gets repeated. But essentially what it's looking like is a springtime block party to celebrate the life of Shovelhead Austin. So you're going to see some of New York's best bikes there. You're going to see all the characters from New York. The original Hipster Killer crew is going to be there, which was what Shovelhead Austin was a part of. For all you asking me how you get a Hipster Killer sticker, the thing that I always say is, it's not for sale. You need to earn the respect of Shovelhead Austin and Peter Guns. So I don't know how you get one now these days. But if you're in the tri-state area, I couldn't recommend it enough that you come out to this event. Obviously, I'm going to be promoting it a lot through my channel and my content. And again, I kind of started the video just talking about how we could support and how we could give back to Austin. And, you know, they're going to be making t-shirts, there's going to be raffles, there's going to be all sorts of stuff. And all of the proceeds are going to go to Shovelhead Austin's family. So it's an amazing event. It's an amazing way to respect and celebrate the legacy of Shovelhead Austin. And again, if you're in the tri-state area, I think it's a no-brainer. You know, this is just going to be an event that you're going to want to throw on your calendar each year, each spring. And like I said, if you're not in the tri-state area and you've been wanting to come to New York, I love New York. I mean, I know it gets a bad rap a lot of times, but it's an awesome city to visit. Come visit during that weekend, man, and come enjoy some of the most authentic bike life that New York could have to offer over at Indy and Larry Motorcycles. But yeah, Austin, you know, thank you for being so cool to me. Thank you for being such a positive influence on me. Thank you for supporting me and my channel. I'm going to really miss you, and I'm going to do my best to help keep this bike life that you were a pioneer of going and help push the culture forward. I hope that I'm celebrating and commemorating you in the way that you would want. One of the last Instagram posts that Austin made was actually a picture of me, and it just, again, I can't, you know, whoever's watching this, whether it's family members or friends, I cannot say enough about how much I appreciate and how much it meant to me having the support of a legend like Shovelhead Austin, and that he would take the time to share my videos on YouTube and share whatever was going on in my bike builds. You know, it meant the world to me, and it still means the world to me right now. So, thanks for always supporting me, Austin. I'm gonna really miss you, man. But like I said, if you wanna pay respect to the legacy of an absolute American legend, check out my description. Contribute whatever you can, and like I said, if it's over $75, you're gonna get a pretty sick print of the man himself ripping around on his chopper. And again, if you're in the tri-state area or you want to visit New York, put early May on your calendar, because it is going to be a legendary event here in New York City. Well, that's it. As we get a little bit closer to the funeral service, out of respect, you know, the cameras are going off. It's now a time for mourning and respect to the man and the legend. Thank you all for listening to me reflect about this, and thank you, Austin. Rest in peace.